alongside my man
Dots.
So we here and we about to talk about thoughts that do matter, and we're just gonna take a spin like matter, literally matter, what makes up our universe and all the subatomic particles that coexist with us, the conscious things that move like trees and animals and human beings that operate in this world. We all have thoughts or / instinct that just make us animated. So today we're about to talk about how these thoughts dictate what happens to matter and how they coexist, basically.
As far as the picture that we got the initial idea from, so matter was in the middle, then it was thoughts. So I guess we could start with matter first. Where does matter come from and how does it emit thoughts? So one thing, and this is getting pretty deep, that I learned. So matter is made up of very, 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 just like I talked about the sun, dense fabrics of space-time. So it's the same particles. When you think of a whole atom, an atom is a lot of those particles dense down in the same area. I could probably put a little excerpt of a video right now. The source of today's video excerpt that we will be showing you guys will be via Irvin Ash on YouTube. The video's name is Quantum Field Theory. What is the universe really made of? Quantum Field Theory Visualized. Irvin Ash is a very knowledgeable and trustworthy source that I highly advise you guys to look into. Thank you, Irvin Ash, for the content, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys take some notes as well.
What is truly fundamental in the reality that we perceive? In 400 BC, Greek philosopher Democritus came up with the idea of atoms as being fundamental. He believed that these were solid pieces of matter which could not be divided any further. 2,300 years later, in 1897, J.J. Thomson discovered something smaller than an atom, called the electron. And in 1912, Ernest Rutherford discovered that atoms had nuclei. Then we found that nuclei were composed of protons and neutrons. These were thought to be the fundamental components that all things are made of until the 1960s, when we found that neutrons and protons were composed of even smaller things called quarks. Two kinds, up quarks and down quarks. Today, everything that you can see around you is thought to be made up of just these three particles: electrons, up quarks, and down quarks. That's what all atoms are made of. Your phone, your desk, your skin, your grass, everything. At least, this is what most people are taught in science class. The only problem is, it's not true. And physicists have known this for decades. These particles are really not fundamental. The best theory in physics tells us that there really are no particles at all. Nature is made of fields. Reality is fundamentally many different fields. These things we call particles are merely waves in the field. Not that kind of field though. So what in the heck are these fields, and what do they tell us about the nature of reality? Composing the standard model is not what the universe is actually made of. The particles are fiction. They're convenient representations that are not really the best understanding of the universe today. The fundamental nature of the universe are not particles, but fields. These are fluid-like substances that can be perturbed, they can vibrate and experience excitations. What exactly are fields? Mathematically, a field is something that takes a value at every point in space. They're not really made of anything other than that from a strictly physicist point of view.
But we also know that matter is not created nor destroyed, so in the suns is where these things start combining together and making different combinations of protons and electrons, and that's how you get helium, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon. You get these different combinations. And carbon, for us, like we're carbon-based life forms, which has shells, 4 vascular shells or something like that, where it's able to interact with a lot of different elements or atoms, and they seem to be able to be the structure or the backbone for life. That's what a lot of scientists look for, carbon-based life forms like us, because carbon is such a particular atom or element that makes it how it is. A philosopher back in Greece, his name was Aristotle, he broke up matter into 4 elements. As we know, they are air, fire, earth, and water. And he gave them characteristics such as fire having more spirit, earth being more of the physical, air being more logical in shape, and water you'd be dealing with emotion. But that's more of like you want to take it to the zodiac.
So we were born on a certain day in time, and then the stars were aligned in a certain space in time. So that's how you can distinct yourself from everybody else. Just like we talked about relativity, something can only be described when it is pinpoint to a space and time. Okay? So just talk about all of that because the zodiac, we talk about stars, and the stars position when you were born defines who you were, and then we can say, okay, you're a fire, air, earth, or water type of person. And then you tend to follow that element without even trying. Like me, I didn't figure out I was a fire sign until maybe like 3-4 years ago. Like I really wasn't into zodiac. But then I realized after I noticed it, I thought back to my childhood and I was like, man, I actually did play with a lot of fire when I was young. I loved fire, I liked lighting candles. My dad had a compost in the backyard, so I used to light that. I used to just throw things that we didn't need and just light the compost, just sit there and look at the fire.
All right, so now you're talking about the zodiac. So how do thoughts translate to individuals will be different, and everybody thinks differently. Not even just in the zodiac mind frame.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks in a different aspect based off how you were raised and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do your thoughts start to define how you matter? How do your thoughts start to define what everybody else may think? You know what I'm saying? So thoughts, also you said we live in the 4th dimension. The 4th dimension is on the inside. So we're Innerstate 64, so let's go into the inside and tie these things together. So there's experiments with plants. And if you talk negative to a plant, it's going to
die.
It's not going to grow. If you talk positive and water the plant with positivity, then it's going to prosper. But let's talk about self. So you can have negative connotations with yourself. You may think of an insecurity as something that's very negative, but insecurities is just how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a negative thing. It's just something that you feel. You may not be worthy of something or whatever. However you feel, it's just you can look at it negative, but it's also you. It's not a negative per se. It's more or less just how you feel. So if you accept how you feel, you can then grow or move on from the insecurity, or work with yourself at least to get over the insecurity, because at the end of the day, you're worthy of whatever you want.
I wanted to try to explain ourselves, and basically what we're doing, talking about the self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try to explain it in the way that I understood it myself, right? So just like I talked about with the squares and triangles, a total figure is just a sum of its parts, right? So we see that the world, as we see it from outer space, is circular, right? So if we condense it down, we scale it down, what else is circular? Atoms, they say, are circular, nucleus. Make it a little bigger. What else? We have our aura. You know how people say, I live in my own world, right? So if you imagine a bubble, right? And you control everything that goes into the bubble and outside of the bubble. You know, just like we're in COVID right now, they say stay in your bubble. You control everything that goes in and out of that bubble, okay? But then, so you're a single person, you're the individual. But once you connect with somebody else, you interact with somebody else, now you're mixing bubbles, you're mixing worlds, you're mixing thoughts.
Like a Venn diagram.
Yep, like a Venn diagram, and you gotta come to a center point So everything is an equation. This is how I also think of things. Everything is an equation. An equation, you can also say, is an environment where two things come together and live.
I agree.
I'm saying all of this to say that this bubble that I'm talking about, the individual bubble, is basically our thoughts. Our thoughts create an environment, just like I said, and this environment houses matter that we actually decide to use. Because like I said, you control everything that goes in and out of this bubble. You control everything that you want to utilize and you don't want to utilize.
So using your earlier analogy, I can use, say if my world is Earth, literally. My thought and the gateway to my world will be basically like my magnetic field. That's what it is. It's like my magnetic field. So when I'm allowing, like, little jabs like that, so say somebody insults you, that could be like a meteorite. It comes into your atmosphere. You either can let it impact your core or your surface, your crust, or it can burn up in the atmosphere. You don't even phase it. Like, okay, you send me that shot, but
Exactly, but yep, so you control everything that goes in and out. Your magnetic field, just like you said, is basically your thoughts, because your thoughts attract things like a magnet. Law of attraction, manifestation.
I feel like we can take food to another extent too, because food also, or what we consume, affects how we think too. Not even food also affects what we consume, drinks.
Just like they say, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
You are what you consume, what you bring in.
What you put in yourself. So like, if you thinking weird, like you having a lot of insecurities in the past, however, like you notice, dang, why am I tripping on myself like this? And it's probably because of what you're seeing on, the internet or what's going on. I know COVID caused a lot of people to feel some type of way about themselves. Being in the house, like I feel confined, I feel cut off, I feel small. This because of COVID, and a lot of people came to acknowledge these thoughts that were new. Just being in the right thought. This is that's actually a Buddhist. My laptop died, but it's right thought. It's one of the eight paths.
Eightfold.
Yeah, eightfolds. Right thought, I believe. It is what I'm thinking about productive for me. If you're going to stress yourself out with these thoughts, then let them go. At the same time, just allow the thoughts to come, but don't allow it to affect you to the point where you're stressing yourself out. Having that right mindfulness is what they call it. So just being in the right mind to perceive what is actually going on with you. At the same time, your thoughts do matter. And how they affect you and other people do matter too. So what we just like to explain is your thoughts matter on not only on a outward self, because you could look happy and be expressive and all this other stuff, acting normal, but on the inside you're being eat up by something, you don't want to express it. I wanted to leave y'all with this. It's called string theory, and I wanted to tie it to Hawthorne theory because when we seem to like look at our emotions or a specific insecurity, like I was talking about earlier, when you're looking at something, for string theory, you have atoms, and we need light in order to look at atoms, right? So we shoot an atom with a photon, and that affects the way the atom behaves usually. Because when you're not observing it, it seems like it's all over the place. But when you observe it, it's still. In the Hawthorne theory, when some business or corporation was telling its workers that they're going to be observing them throughout their work process increased. Why? Because they're being watched. They feel like they have to put as much effort as possible because no one wants to get fired. So your cells, to the most smallest extent, are listening to your thoughts. So let's say you're getting sick. Maybe you got you can't breathe right now. Don't even claim that you're sick. Don't claim that you're sick. Just say that I can't breathe right now. That's
Be
it.
conscious of how you talk to yourself. That's very important.
At the end of the day, we're all alone. We all are in our own world, but we have those around us that care. we're a part of different constellations. This is a Starcast, you feel me?
Yep.
Everybody has their own perception of how they view you. Everybody's night sky is different, depending on where you are in the world and what's your outlook. We are a two-man constellation right now, constant in a line. So you can just draw a single line, boom, that's us. But your family and everything else, your friends, your associates, you have, you know, building on building on building, just like
a
the
Big Dipper. It's a bigger picture.
Right.
That's a better constellation.
All right. So for our next episode, we're gonna have, y'all should be looking out for it. It's gonna be consciousness and space time. So we're gonna tie these two things together, where thoughts matter, and in space time, we kind of touched on it, space time a lot today. But consciousness and space time is how it differs from thoughts and matter. They're all levels on top of each other.
Yep.
So we want to be visiting around the same kind of conversations, but, you know, taking a different diversion.
I just thought of this literally 2 seconds ago. Hopefully this makes sense because I didn't think long about it. So boom, looking at the picture, we have matter, thoughts, consciousness, space-time, right? So we have a lot of matter in this world. We got people, we got animals, we got just plain like elements like bricks, rocks, and we got lively plants and stuff, right? But not everything thinks, okay? Just like you said earlier, thoughts are kind of like instincts. Animals have instincts, I guess you could say plants have instincts, humans have instincts, but rocks and other things they don't think, okay? So we're out in the thoughts. Now consciousness, you could say consciousness is like strategic thoughts, a higher level of thinking. You know, just like animals. Animals can communicate, but not at the level we can communicate. Animals usually communicate as far as like mannerisms and pitches and tones and stuff, but we actually have words and phrases and things like that, as well as mannerisms, pitches and tones, right? So you have that. Now we're out in the consciousness. There's higher levels of consciousness. And then after consciousness, we seem to be the highest form of consciousness on this earth. But what's out in space, in space-time, in the fabric of space-time? What's out there? Is there more? We need to get out there. If you notice, all the leading people, all the richest people in the world want to go out to space. Jeff Bezos wants to go out to space. Elon Musk wants to go out to space. Einstein and Aristotle, Newton all looked out to the stars. We are the northern stars. We are the Innerstate 64. We're Starcast. So when we all saying that everything has levels to this, man. Like who said that? What song was that? There's levels to this. This sound like a Drake song. I don't know. But yeah. So we have matter. Not all matter thinks, but then we have some matter that does think. Then we have some matter that thinks at a higher consciousness, and then we have consciousness that may be out in the space-time that we don't know about, or something about space and time that we need to uncover.
The universe itself could be a consciousness.
Yeah, it literally, most likely is, I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, that's what we're here for today. Just like my brother Assad said, we taught matter and thoughts today. Next episode, we're going to talk about consciousness and space-time, and then we're going to try to tie it all in. And then these first 2 episodes are just to get a little sense of what we're doing here, and then we're just going on. From there, we're going to have more topics, more content for you guys. Soon we'll have merch. I got on the new Northern Stars merch that's coming soon now. This is only the beginning. Literally only the beginning. It will only get better from this point on in this space and time. So, anything else you guys want to say?
No, just be free.
Be free, stay cool, stay in school, learn something each and every day. Don't let nobody say you can't do anything. You have no limits because space and time has no limits. So, hey, peace and love, family. See you later.